Hey, this is Thomas. Today I'll be demoing John the Ripper, which is an offline password cracking tool. For John the Ripper to work, we'll need a password file, which is essentially a user file, and then a shadow file, which is a password hash file. If you saw my Metasploit Basics tutorial, you can just grab these from your Metasploitable machine using the same process that we did to get a root shell on it. You can just do cat etc shadow or some sort of command like that, and then copy and paste the lines over to your Kali machine. The reason this is called an offline password cracking tool is because it's done outside of your target's machine. It's done on your host machine, on your Kali machine. So we actually have to have a text file or some other sort of file locally rather than doing it over the network while we're still inside of a machine. So I've already done that. I just copy and pasted the shadow and passwd files in the Metasploitable machine. And getting John to work is basically just a very simple two-step process. The first one is to unshadow the password hashes, and that just means kind of link the users and the passwords together. And then the next step is to let John compare all the password hashes to a word list and then see if it can find any matches. So first we'll unshadow the files using sudo unshadow and then specify the file, passwd and shadow files in this instance, and then we'll create a new file based off those, and I'll call it cracked. Alright, so now let's just display that cracked. Alright, see? Here you go. Now we have users against passwords, and then more information. Alright, the next step is to specify a word list for John to compare these files to. We'll just do sudo John, which is using John the Ripper's tool. And then we specify the word list with a flag -- word list. And then point it to whatever list we want to use. In this case, I'm just going to be using John's default password list. But there are actually a ton of word lists in Kali Linux that are up for grabs, and you can find them in user share word lists. And a quick look around, you can find certain things. There's directories. This rocku.txt, I believe I actually had to download later, and it's kind of enormous. It's actually some sort of, it's like 1 to 4 gigabyte file of real user passwords that were grabbed by hackers a few years ago and then released out into the public. But that takes a while. The longer the password list, obviously the longer it's going to take for John to compare all those password hashes. So instead we're just going to use John's password list, default password list. And then once we do that, we just have to specify which text file we want John to compare to, and then let it do its thing. This is pretty quick. Only 7 password hashes to compare to, and a relatively small password list. Now it only found 4. If you're just using the absolute default password list like I am, then you'll probably get the same number. You'll probably get the same ones, and we can display which ones were shown with the John -- show command and then the file. We can see sys had the password Batman. Klog had another terrible password, and then service used itself as a password. So that's pretty much it. Pretty simple.